Welcome to the Scott My Show, a podcast where we talk about bodybuilding, health improvement, and physique enhancement. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in working with me, I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, building muscle, improving your health, or all the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of those together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help you every step of the way with any questions you may have. If you're interested, you can DM me on Instagram, click the link in my profile to fill out a form, or ask any questions you may have. Also, we can hop on a free consult call where we can go over your goals, answer questions, and discuss what it would look like to work together. The show is brought to you by Element Electrolytes, and for a limited time, the Element Chocolate Medley is available with 3 flavors: chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. They all go really well in any hot beverage, whether it's coffee, tea, or just a glass of hot water. And I personally love Element Electrolytes, and my wife does too. We've been using them for years. They're a great way to help boost performance, to help you get in the proper amount of electrolytes for a day, and help regulate brain health, physical health. Uh, Salt is important for a lot of things, and just drinking plain water doesn't get you the electrolytes you need. So check out Element in the description, or you can go to drinkelement.com/Scott Mize, and there you'll be able to get a free sample pack when you use my link and help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice, and please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show. Dylan Gemelli is a world-renowned health expert focused on hormone and cellular health, fitness, and longevity with over 20 years of experience. Dylan has built a massive online following across social media and the Dylan Gemelli podcast, where he's interviewed industry giants like Dr. Stephen Gundry, JJ Virgin, and a former UFC champion, Misha Tate. Former college athlete and fitness model, Dylan had a dramatic wake up when he went to prison, which fueled his mission to educate. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. So for folks who don't know you, and it's always great to hear it myself, would love to hear, like, where did you start? How did you become the Dylan Gemelli of today? Give us some background.
It's a loaded question, brother. I'll
Sure.
do my best. It's been a long, long road, man. Let's just go back to we'll go back to college because that's kind of where I start the story at. So I was a college basketball player
Okay.
because you brought up the fitness modeling stuff. So that was not something I ever intended to do whatsoever, any kind of modeling or acting at all. I was just dead set on playing basketball until I realized 6 foot white guy that just not holding up in college. I
Sure.
injured my back twice. I broke vertebrae twice, and
Oh, wow.
lost one scholarship, rehabilitated for a year, went back, got hurt in 3 weeks into the season, lost another scholarship, and just said,
Ah,
you know what, I'm done. I'm just not doing this anymore.
I was a college athlete too and had back problems throughout, so I can definitely relate.
All right, so you know all too well what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All of the time, and I actually hurt it my senior year, and I just spent so much time in rehab, man, and that gets old, after a while. I don't care how much determination you have, it gets old. So moving forward, my mom kept pushing me on to wanting to model, and I just felt like it was just way too feminine for me. I was a 4 sport athlete in high school, just that, like, I lived and breathed sports, but I did like fashion a little bit, so I thought I'm going to try this, and sure enough, I went to this competition in New York, this big, it's called IMTA. I got fifth place out of about 30,000 people.
Wow.
And yeah, got a contract and boom, went right to Milan, to Italy. So I went from like not having any experience in that or wanting to do it to the straight big league because
Yeah.
that's the mecca of where it's at. And
Yeah. That's
I got out there and it's not what you think it is. Like here was the day for you, just a total breakdown, just an honest, truthful breakdown.
yeah.
get up like 8 o'clock, go to the subway, get to the agency, get your casting sheet for the day. They'll put you on 7, 8 things. You'll probably get to four of them if you're lucky. By the time you travel and wait in line and all of this,
Oh my
then
God.
you go to the gym after you're done, and then you go party, man. And that's it. I mean, that's it. There's a lot of drugs, alcohol, and it's hard to stay looking good and staying fresh and awake because of all of that.
Yeah.
I did that several months. Then I came back here and I started to get into the acting side. I was a extra on The Wire. I don't know. I'm sure you probably heard of that.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course.
I was on there and I started going. But man, that lifestyle, I couldn't keep up with the like trying to. I was living a life where I was more worried about what everybody else thought about me and trying to keep up with money and women and all of that. And you're not making a ton of money doing what I was doing unless you're like the top 3%. Like with bodybuilding, these guys all want to get their pro cards, but how many of them are really making their money?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So I couldn't keep up, and I got into that scene and I started selling drugs to keep up to make extra money. And I don't know of too many people that ever made it through without getting in trouble selling drugs. It's so I actually got a 15-year prison sentence out of that.
Wow.
And, I had all of these credentials. I was raised so well, only child, just well known in my community. And I disgraced not only myself, but my family and all the people that believed in me. And I got the blessing of getting let off. I mean, I got what was called a suspended sentence. I was a first time offender, drained my parents' bank accounts to pay for the best attorney. And what happens is they put you on probation and they give you this sentence and they say if you screw up your probation, you could possibly get the sentence or they can punish you other ways. Well, 3 times I violated it. And the third time they said, okay, you just don't get it. And so I was given a 15-year prison sentence at 28 years old. And they have funny laws here, and I was perfect behavior in there. And I spent the whole time just figuring out how I was going to fix things and change things and what was I going to do.
Yeah.
And I actually got out in 2 years off of that 15. And my mom and dad had moved to Maui in the process. So I went from hell, like the depths of hell, sleeping with murderers at one point because I was on top of a bunk of somebody that had actually murdered somebody. Okay. And I remember I got out on the 4th of July in 2011 and went straight to Maui and started from scratch, living in my mom's basement. So that's 14 years ago. I started my life from scratch.
Yeah.
And I had 5 years parole, did one, and they let me go. Perfect behavior. Did everything I was asked of and then some. And that's where I met my wife. And she was like the complete polar opposite of me, just total opposite, and exactly what I needed. And from there, I moved to Vegas and I started fresh. And what I started doing at the time when I was on parole was visiting all these bodybuilding forums and dedicating like my free time to studying everything to do bodybuilding, right? And I already had a background in nutrition and nutritional science and anatomy and physiology that I studied in college. And what I did with that was work my way up as fast as I could, and I got noticed. Now, this big company found me and they said, look, we want to make you like a YouTube star. And I'm like, okay. And what are we going to do? Because I was in these bodybuilding forums and they were talking about supplements, steroids, and they said they wanted me to start doing steroid videos. And I'm like, dude, I just got out of trouble. I'm free. I actually called the attorney and said, hey, is this legal? Like, can I do this? And they were like, yeah, as long as you're not selling it or telling people, what. And I said, okay, all right. So I spent the time there researching every single steroid that I could and putting out information video. And nobody was doing videos at the time on it.
Yeah.
Nobody.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we're talking like 2012, man. Like nobody's doing this. 2011,
Yeah.
2012. Well, then they introduced me to SARMs and peptides, which nobody heard about. Nobody. Yeah. And so I'm well over 10 years ahead of the scope here on peptides, that everybody's doing now. And I really became known for my studies on SARMs at the time because I was like, look, I'm not a steroid guy. I'm going to do this. I'm going to teach this. I'm going to make myself what I need to make myself, but this is not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a big steroid user and a big 500-pound bodybuilder. I'm a basketball player, tennis player. Like I like to stay lean and, but I wanted to help people and try to explain the side effects, the problems. And, if you're going to use it this way.
Yeah.
You And I got hired by a lot of Mr. Olympia bodybuilders and people to coach them. And I still, do. I try to avoid that now. It's not really what I like to do, but that's where I specialized in like SARMs, peptides, teaching people, different ways that they could go about this without just destroying themselves in the
Yeah.
process. And if they want to go the other route, fine, I'll coach you and teach you the right way. And it got me a lot of heat because people are like, oh, he's too conservative and he doesn't know. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to make you live longer, and
Yeah.
so I spent all this time, so many years. I had 1 million subscribers on YouTube, got a channel taken down. So I had to start that from scratch.
Wow.
So you'll notice this starting from scratch throughout
Yeah.
here.
That's really
Rebuilt
cool.
another one, started that from scratch because it got taken down again. So we moved forward, and that's when I started to work on my Instagram and like my other accounts, and then slowly rebuild in a different direction on YouTube. And finally, this past year, I got really noticed by doctors and people in like the field that I'm kind of in now. And I was asked to speak at Mr. Olympia, the 60th anniversary this year.
Mhm.
And that was like my golden moment, right? For all these years of being an influencer, which I don't like being called. And that put me in a different category and league. Well, when I was there, I made a really good impression, came across well, and then I got noticed by people in the biohacking community. And when I came home, I got COVID. And I was like, man, why did this happen right now when I got all this momentum and all these opportunities from being at the Olympia? And that's when I figured out, okay, I studied the biohacking area, and I'm telling you, man, I'm a very spiritual guy, by the way, and so I kind of go the route God takes me wherever it goes, and I heard it. Instead of pouting when I was sick and complaining like I always do, I sat there and I said, you know what, there's got to be a reason for this, and I found the reason. And ever since then, everything for me has taken off. I've started studies in cellular health. I'm actually just finishing being a cellular health coach. I'm in the process of integrative health practitioner. I'm getting my master's in dietics, and it's just taken a completely different route. And so that's kind of where we are today. And then my podcast has grown, and everything I've done has evolved kind of into what it is now. And I'm a lot more humble guy. I was a real asshole when I was younger, man. I really was selfish, just Dylan this, Dylan that. And I try to be the polar opposite now, really.
That's cool.
And, put everybody first and do everything for everybody I can. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
the
awesome.
the short of the long. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know about all the struggles and restarting along the way. And I'll share this. I know you're into tattoos, but I got my first in July, and it's I can't really show my
Awesome.
arm. It's a
Yeah.
phoenix.
Yeah.
So it's all about starting again and resilience and always having the opportunity to start again in the face of challenges.
I love it. I love it. As long as I'm covered in a lot of biblical things. I actually just had one under here done a couple days ago. Not fun, but as long as they mean something to you, man, that's what it's all about. And
Yeah,
that's a really good one to have.
thanks. Yeah, and I guess on that topic, like what what gives you that resilience, or like what did you mentioned God, but like what else in your mindset or mentality allowed you to keep going when you hit those like troughs, the bottom?
I don't I there's some things in life that you can't really explain, and I've always been that way where I will actually even tell myself, if you don't do this, something bad's gonna, and I'll create, how Michael Jordan used to create things to want to beat somebody when he played. I
Mhm.
do that to myself when I think, if I don't do this, like, and I'll just make something random up, like, you're not gonna get this, or this isn't gonna happen for you, and I'll make myself do it. I mean, I'm a 90-minute 5 day a week cardio guy. No matter how bad I feel, I'm in the gym the 5 days a week. Even at, I'm not old, but at 43, I every single day, no matter what the case is, I'm wired that way. And I was, at the time, I'll never forget being on the phone with my mom, because she had me calling her every day when I was gone, and she said to me, a couple things. One was, were me and your dad really that bad of parents? And that really like hit me. I'll never forget that conversation. I'll never. And
Yeah.
then I remember complaining about how bad it was in there, and woe is me. And she said, "Don't you realize how selfish you are, and you're not thinking about what you did and how what you did is affecting the people that care about you and how they worry about you and feel." And that's when it hit me how selfish I was, you
Yeah.
know? And that made me want to be so much better every day. And now, my dad passed away unexpectedly in 2015, and he didn't get to see me do a lot of the things I'm doing now. I feel like he got the worst of me.
Mm.
And so that makes me like, it just lights a fire under me all the time. And I think about it, what would he think now? And I've got to do this because I know he can see it, and I got to keep showing him because I know how bad I let him down.
Yeah.
So those are my drivers. And then God is my biggest driver. That's where I go to everything and anything. It doesn't matter. Every single time now, that's my safe haven,
Yeah.
no matter what. So that's where it's at for me.
Yeah. And another theme that I noticed, like, is you're always, at least since coming out back from prison, the first thing you talked about it was like educating yourself from the forums and diving into that. And now you're getting more education, more education. Um, can you talk about like some of the sources of knowledge you've tapped into and like how you've educated yourself on health, nutrition? Because the forums back then, from what I understood, it was a lot of like, hey, I did this, it wasn't like this is the way things work in terms of cells and hypertrophy and
No.
this is what studies show. It was more like people's experiences. So like how did you build up that base along the way?
Yeah. So, well, one thing I want to say too is one of the things that I live by, the things I say is you can never know too much, but you can always know too little. And the minute you start
Mm.
to think you know so much, that's when it's like if you were a basketball player, don't the best players shoot every single day so they
Yeah,
not only keep what they got to get better?
yeah,
I read every day, man. Like there's barely any days that I don't read something new or listen to somebody. And sometimes you learn from people what not to do, but at least you're learning something.
mm,
So, with the forums, what I kind of did with that was use user experiences to start my base,
mm,
right? And because you can read every study you want, and you and I both know this. You can alter a study or make it look however you want by the control group that you're
sure,
using and whoever's running it. So they're great. We need them. We do.
yeah,
But that's limited data for me. I need real life experience, and I need to see,
mm,
okay, this guy is just so abusive, like, and you can't take some things you have to take with a grain of salt. I have a lot of people I've coached. I'm big on really extensive blood work, not basic panels. I'm talking extensive panels. So
yeah,
I spent a lot of time working hands on with people because you can't just base everything off your own experience. You know, you see a lot of people that are teachers and they'll go, well, I did this. Well, that's great because it's good that you had the experience, but that doesn't translate to everybody else,
yeah, yeah,
And so I've had to learn. Look, I've made a ton of mistakes along the way. That's one of them, like thinking, oh, because I did this. Another one is falling into the trap of parroting what other people say just because they have a big audience.
mm,
Because a lot of these people, they spew a lot of bad things. And if you go against them, yeah, you might take some heat, but eventually things kind of come out. So it's a sticky slope when you're learning and doing things like what I was doing in that world. And I helped with some of those forums to make them more of like libraries of information on the sites. Like, okay, they got a forum site, but I like wrote articles and contributed factual things so that they had that for people to go to. And I wrote some ebooks on SARMs, peptides, and nootropics that I have, and I've tried to overcome like the bro science crap that you have to listen to and all of that nonsense that really gets people in trouble. And it's hard because you're going to take heat for that, and the more followers you get, you're going to get those type of people that want to bash you, and that's how I got a couple channels lost. Is some people got me shut down at the time, and it's a lot harder to do that now. But that was a big hit, and I don't think people realize how that can affect you, not just financially but mentally.
yeah,
But it's just part of it. It all happened for a reason. And I think it was also to prove resilience and then get me to where I'm at today. But, science should always be questioned and it's never ending. And if you don't study it, learn it, and then challenge it and then try to figure out new ways how it evolves, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just not.
And you've worked with bodybuilders for so long, and like the knowledge base and access to information has changed a lot. I'm curious, like what the difference was back then talking to bodybuilders about health versus now. Like how what was the baseline, and how has that evolved?
It's if you say, oh, 2013 or 4, it doesn't sound like that long ago,
Yeah,
but it is if you sit and think about it. And
sure.
then with that question you just asked me, then I go, huh, what are we looking at and how are we doing this differently? I mean, it's like everything really. Nutrition facts have changed so much. You see, like, and you and I were talking about carnivore before, but you're seeing like more people be more accepting of fats and understanding things, and more
Mm,
people questioning what we're told on food guide pyramids or
yeah,
BS with the FDA. And I have battled like eating disorder my whole life essentially, because you got to understand, I've been nothing but put in front of people and just blistered on how I look. Okay, whether it was modeling, whether it was my videos, whether it was the bros, it's never ended. And so I've always had this, even though I'm a nutritionist, in my head about fat being so bad. You know what I mean? Like, just
yeah.
melted into my head. And I will tell you just a quick little brief thing here that happened to me recently. So it was like right when I got home from the Mr. Olympia, I walked in the kitchen because I was living this. I'm telling you how much I work out and do cardio, and I'm barely eating 1,600 calories a day of basically all vegetables, yogurt, and eggs, and peanut butter, and that's it. All right, and barely any fat, maybe just the fat from peanut butter. So I went in and told my wife, I said, screw this, I'm done. I'm not living this way anymore. And I went now from like 1,600 calories a day to 25 to 2,700. Now I've changed it around where I'm getting like 120 grams of fat a day from like 15. And I try to keep my protein. Really try to get 1.5, grams per pound. I weigh about 180. So I'm normally about 250 on my protein, and I'm about 75 to 100 carbs. So I'm like 45 fat, 40 protein, 15 carbs.
Yeah,
And I haven't been this shredded or cut up since I used steroids. Seriously. And felt good and like all day long and never thinking about eating at all or anything
yeah.
like that. And those are things that I've learned along the way, is to like, one thing that people I want to understand, you see somebody that coaches or teaches, we still have problems, like, and still deal with things daily. I could preach all day, but I still battle things myself. So nobody's perfect. So don't think when someone's coaching you or they know a lot that they don't have their own problems. I want to share it with people so you can see what it takes and how we all deal with it, no matter who it is. We're all human and we all have that.
I like that. That's
So,
great.
yeah.
And like where do you like to start when you're helping someone? It can be an average person or a bodybuilder get healthy. Like what are they focused on that they shouldn't be? What should they focus on? Where do you like to begin?
I don't care who it is, and I don't care how good a condition they think they are. I kind of mentioned this earlier. We're getting comprehensive panels done. I'm not just talking like your CMP, which is comprehensive metabolic panel, and CBC. Those are fine. We need those. I mean, those are basic standard numbers. But from the things I've learned about cellular health, mitochondrial health, to gut health, to like the depths that we need to look at your cholesterol numbers. I want full. We're going to sit down. If you're going to work with me, it's a lot more extensive and requirement that's needed, because I'm a very deep looker into what you've got going on with your health. So we're going to get comprehensive, like, cholesterol panels. I'm going to look at micronutrients. I'm going to look at everything, because a lot of problems originate in your cells. That's generally speaking, every disease that you get is going to start and originate in your cell, and it's normally going to be mitochondrial damage or cell membrane damage. Otherwise, it's your gut. So, a lot of people, for instance, I'm in the process of opening like a anti-aging clinic, and with a couple partners. And, we're going to have that, but it's important. A lot of these clinics, they don't do that. They just go, well, let's test your testosterone number. And if it's even borderline, we're just going to put you on TRT and sell you whatever the hell we got. I can't do that in good conscience. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if I'm and anybody I'm working with, even younger guys, I just want to see where you're at because I need to see like, okay, for instance, if we do like a keto diet or if we do a higher carb diet, I need to see how that's affecting your blood panels too. You can't be a good nutritionist, for example, without checking blood work and seeing if certain foods aren't agreeing with you internally. We might have the results we want externally, but that doesn't mean everything that's going on inside is good.
Mm.
So this type of monitoring is very important. So I start there looking at that. I got to get like family history and things like that. So I know when we're training or, have you had injuries? Have you had this? Then what I focus on first is diet. You can train all day long and have the best workout ethic in the world. But if you have a $1 diet, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you look at results, and you take diet, training, and supplements, steroid, whatever, PED, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to notice that 70 to 75% of that is going to be diet related. 10, 15, maybe 20 is going to be your physical activity, and then 5% is going to be on the supplement or PED side. All these guys that take a bunch of steroids and everything, yeah, a lot of them have really good genetics, and yes, you can make results, but dude, if you don't have all of that other stuff in line, you can take everything under the sun. It doesn't mean you're going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
can't take it for very long because you're going to get very unhealthy if you're eating a crap diet on steroids.
exactly. 100%. And most of them are going to increase your cholesterol, your blood pressure, etc. Couple that with a bad diet, like these guys that do their dirty bulking, for example. What do you think their blood panels look like?
Yeah,
I mean, they
crazy.
just don't get it. So those are the main things that we got to look at first, and that's what we're going to dive into first.
Yeah,
Is really look at the diet aspect of it before the training part of it.
yeah. And what do you think most people get wrong in terms of diet? Like where do you see other than like the obvious stuff like eating too much processed food?
Mhm.
Um, what else do people do that you think you makes the biggest difference for people in terms of changing their diet?
A lot of people don't know what they're taking in. They just don't. You know, I'm just going to, just for an example, a lot of people, because your sodium to potassium ratio is very important. And a lot of people in a Western diet, especially, first of all, sodium gets demonized. And so don't think that I'm going there because I'm not, because sodium is very important. But a lot of people eat like double the sodium to potassium they're eating, not getting anywhere enough potassium, and that's very detrimental. That can cause heart palpitations, for example, your electrolytes all off, cramping thing. You potassium's so important. You're supposed to get 35 to 4,700 milligrams per day, and most people get like 2,000 if they're lucky. And their sodium, I don't go by the RDA nonsense of 2,300, but most people get like double that, which is a little much, unless you're
Yeah,
sweating a
totally.
lot. And so like that's just a basic thing. A lot of people just don't know, like they don't read labels. So they don't know that these foods have all of these different things in them. I mean, sucralose is in so many things hidden in there. They don't know what carrageenan is, or like all of these additives that you see, the red dyes, the colors. A lot of people don't know much about seed oils. They don't know. And a lot of people have no idea how much they're eating of anything. They just throw a bunch of stuff down, and I weigh everything and do all that. I'm not saying you got to go crazy, but you should get an idea of how much, a lot of people have bad portion control. They don't know that they're eating way too much or way too little.
Yeah,
You think, a lot of people think, oh, I'll just not eat a lot. You're actually going to make yourself gain more weight.
yeah,
If you undereat, because you're gonna ruin your metabolism, your body goes into starvation mode, and then it starts holding on to everything,
yeah,
that you take in. So I think there's a very strong like lack of, and it's not the fault of a lot of people. It's just a lack of understanding
yeah,
on and how to read food labels and understanding what they say. And the food labels are so damn tricky and so deceiving now. I mean, a cage-free egg it means nothing.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
joke,
yeah,
you know? And you see these things that say heart healthy on some of these like canola oils, and it's like, what? Huh?
yeah,
And it's tricky, and that's why it's important to ask questions, listen to people that know, and hire somebody if you need the help if you're having problems.
yeah, yeah. I think food labels are crazy. But yeah, it's amazing to me how intelligent some people can be in like professional or academic domains and still not know almost anything about nutrition and sort of eat very passively is how I describe it. Like you're just eating what the world offers you, what kind of shows up in front of you.
Yeah.
And like that's a very good way to eat, like very much undereat protein and nutrients in a lot of cases.
I think that lack of understanding, like just nutrients in general and timing is important. I know some people think that's not true. It's very true.
Hmm.
You know, starting your day with protein and a good fat, a good healthy
Yeah.
fat, and then the order that you eat them as well. You go protein, fat, and then carb, and that'll help your glucose spikes and things of that nature. These are things that they're not common knowledge things. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
these are things that you have to listen to people that know and understand. I guarantee you, some people probably eat 300 and 400 grams of carbs a day and have no clue. No clue. It adds up fast if you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah, or people think, oh, I eat a low fat diet, and meanwhile they're out at restaurants eating like vegetables covered in seed oils and stuff. And yeah, you just you don't know what you're eating.
No,
Uh,
brother, if you knew how many people I've had as clients that are like, 20% body fat, 25, and they're like, but I eat a good diet. And I'll go, okay, well, let's just do me a favor. Email me a copy of your day and I'll look at it and just be like, oh boy, if you think that's a good diet, then what do you think's a bad one, And
yeah,
I've been tasked with some crazy stuff, man,
yeah,
but nothing surprises me anymore.
that's funny. And how you mentioned we were going back and forth in DMs a little bit earlier, and you talked about heart health, and that's
Yeah.
something I think is super interesting for bodybuilders. I think a lot of people try to simplify it and say like, oh, if you just check your cholesterol numbers, like
Oh,
your heart is good.
no.
But there's so much more to it, and I think bodybuilders are at serious risk with one, just the high body weights they get up to,
Yeah.
stressing the heart, and also, high blood pressure, certain steroids affect it differently. What has been your own journey with learning about heart health? And yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so well, one that you brought up the size. So when there's different pathways, right? So you got AMPK and mTOR, but if you with a lot of these bodybuilders are in mTOR way, way, way too long. And I'm not going to get all sciencey. That's a whole different topic. Just understand when you're in that for too long, that's what kills a lot of these guys early. People
Yeah.
will point at this and that and this and that, and it's because their body's in this stage and it's a central regulator of cell growth and metabolism, and it's activated in response to nutrient availability, growth factors, and energy abundance. So it's like promoting protein synthesis, cell growth, proliferation, and it's a really bad thing. Being in that stage too long is why a lot of these guys go down, okay, and die early, and so I wish more people would understand that. But anyway, let's go to the heart health side of it. So you brought up a good point. A basic cholesterol panel, what are we looking at? We're looking at LDL, we're looking at HDL, we're looking at total cholesterol, and we're looking at triglycerides. Now, for years and years, it's been slammed into our heads that LDL is so bad and it's like end of the world. And if your LDL is high, then you're done. And first of all, LDL itself it may be a bad cholesterol marker, but it's so important. A lot of these people that they just throw you on statins, throw you on statins, throw you on statins, and then they crush people's LDLs, and then they wonder why they're getting Alzheimer's early or having all of these problems later because they don't have enough cholesterol in their body. We need to look at and focus on ApoB and LP little a and your particle sizes. These are the markers that are going to tell me if you may have had a pre-existing condition or you have a serious underlying condition right now. Now, your LP little a is what I found that I had. Now, your LP little a is lipoprotein A,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be under 75, but once you get over 25, I don't care. You're starting to get high. Okay. I found that my LP little a was 330. And the problem with LP little a is You know how if you have bad cholesterol, for example, and you go exercise, you change your diet, and that's going to fix it, right? Or at least it's going to help it. LP little a is completely genetic, so you can't fix it by exercise. You can't fix it by changing your diet. That's not going to work. Statins increase your LP little a. So all of these different methods or things that are said, it it's backwards. Okay, so this is one thing you have to look at, and then you want to look at your ApoB. Now I'm going to talk about the testings. So a lot of people think that they can go in and get an EKG, and that's going to say, oh, if it's okay, I'm okay. The
Yeah.
EKG doesn't really tell you much of anything except for your heart rhythm. Okay, I mean, you can check that on your watch, on your Apple
Yeah.
Watch. And even in echocardiograms, it's and a stress test, they're not going to tell you much of anything. I mean, unless you're really messed up and it's so obvious that they can see that this coming. So
Right.
let's break down how you figure out what's really going on. Because a lot of bodybuilders or people, when you have a heart attack, it's from atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of plaque in your arteries, right? So a lot of bodybuilders will end up getting that through their diets, through steroid use, and being an mTOR too long, for example, can contribute, or a high LP little a, because what that does is it sticks. It's like a transport, like ApoB, and these little particles stick inside of your arteries. So how do we figure out what's really going on? Because an EKG or an echocardiogram is going to tell you anything about that at all. So, first step, what a lot of people do is they will get a calcium score. Okay. And that's a coronary calcium score. Insurance doesn't cover it, but you can go get one for $100 at any place. And this is step one. All
Yeah.
right. So that's a non-invasive treatment because if when we go a step further, they're going to inject the dye into you.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to call it a CAC. It's a coronary artery calcium score.
Yeah.
That is going to measure the amount of calcium in your coronary arteries. The problem with this is it's only measuring calcified plaque. So the good thing is that it's going to give you an estimate of kind of how much plaque you have. So it'll be on a score like you're supposed to be in the 0 to 10 range. Well, I went in to do that and found my score to be 120. So I had a
Wow.
complete flip out and not understand why. Well, it was from the high LP little a score. So
Mm.
then but the problem here is it doesn't tell you how much soft plaque you have because while of course the more calcified plaque you have, it can cause stenosis and narrow your arteries down. The soft plaque is the one that has the ability more than likely to rupture, break off, and cause the heart attack because then it has a blockage, right? So you don't know. You could have a 0, calcium score, but have soft plaque in there because it's not going to detect it. So you think that by taking that and you get a 0, you're in the clear, but that doesn't mean shit. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's then the step two, CT angiogram, which is like much more in detail. So they're going to inject dye into you, which feels a little weird when they do it. And you don't want to do that too often, but it visualizes your coronary arteries and then that identifies blockages or narrowings and it shows you exactly where it's at.
Mm.
Okay. Um, the problem there, once again, is though it's not going to exactly show you the amount of soft plaque that's in there. It's gonna be a way better picture. It's gonna narrow it down. It's gonna give you the percentage of blockage you have. So like I found I had a 30% blockage in that area, which I caught it, because once you start getting up to 70, really above 50, they look at to put a stent in you. All right, which you certainly don't want because they put a stent in to open up your artery. Um, so then you say, well, how do we figure out how do we figure out soft plaque? There's a scan now, it's called a Clearly scan. And the Clearly scan it's way more comprehensive. Now, mind you, I don't think insurance covers this. I'm actually going to get one done in a few months, but this is the newest, like most innovative thing. And it gives you very detailed reporting to where plaque and stenosis actually are in your arteries. And
Mm.
it gives a full breakdown of the amount of hard versus soft plaque. You're not going to get a better picture than from that Clearly scan. So, but just looking at LDL, HDL, and triglycerides is not going to tell you anywhere near what you need to know whatsoever about your heart health. It's just not. It's not.
Yeah. And how did you go about improving it, your LP little a, and fixing your own issues?
So LP little a, like I said, can't be controlled with certain aspects. I've gotten my LP little a score down it went from like high red line, I'm into the yellow where it's moderate now, which
Okay.
they tell you you only really need to test this once and you're kind of screwed, you know? So
Yeah.
there's medicines in phase 3 trials right now. I believe Eli Lilly's got one I'm waiting for to come out because it's supposed to like eliminate it,
Wow.
for like a year at a time.
Crazy.
So first of all, they wanted to put me on a statin because because of that condition, which I let sit on my counter and never used because that's a crock of shit. So thankfully, I know the right people and doctors that were able to get me on PCSK9 inhibitors.
Yeah.
Okay, so I right now take Vasipa and Repatha, and those have worked magic,
Yeah.
absolute magic. And then I also, so I've learned some hacks along the way. I had one doctor that was so firmly with the niacin, which worked for me, but it damaged my liver score. So I had to stop taking it because I was taking so much of it. But pomegranate juice is another one that can actually, because they will tell you you can't reverse plaque in your arteries, which I've seen so many people do. That is also nonsense. And some of the best doctors in the freaking United States and world have told me that that is completely false.
Yeah.
Pomegranate juice is one of those methods that helps to do that. Baby aspirin every night.
Yeah.
It's another thing that I do, the 83 or the 81. And so these are things that I do. And then, it's crazy. You and I were talking. So, you know how meat's so bad and saturated fats are
Yeah.
so bad. And as soon as I put these into my diet, all of my stuff started looking even better and better and better,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be the polar opposite,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So I use SCT oil, which is a short chain triglyceride, as opposed to everybody uses MCT.
Yeah.
SCT is much harder to find. The SCT is one of my key things that helps me to spitfire like that fat loss and stay so shredded, and I put that in my coffee. But a lot of these fats have really made a major, major difference for me.
Hmm.
Major. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. I was concerned because I think it was less due to bodybuilding, but more due to my history as a competitive lightweight rower, doing like all that cardio.
Hmm.
I rode for 8 years, which was, 12 months a year, 6 days a week, 3 to 6 hours of
Oh,
cardio,
yeah.
basically.
Yep.
And that can put a strain on your heart. A lot of like triathletes have heart issues, or marathon runners. And I I I got an echo done when I started bodybuilding because I was like, I don't know what this is going to do to my heart. Everyone's saying this is important. And my ejection fraction was a little bit low. It was like 48%. And generally, you want it to be like 50% or higher.
Hmm.
Um, and then over the years that I've bodybuilded and, used special sports supplements and put on massive amount of weight, I went from 160 pounds to 240 pounds and much leaner. My ejection fraction has improved. It's now 65%.
Nice.
I've had two since that first one. And I think a lot of it is actually due to um, telmisartan, which is an angiotensin receptor blocker. It's a blood pressure medication, but it's not super strong on blood pressure.
Hmm.
But it does have like heart remodeling properties,
Yeah.
and even brain remodeling properties. So it's really interesting how some of these modern drugs can do like really weird and seemingly miraculous things.
There's some good ones out there. The problem is a lot of the good ones are hard to get prescribed. A lot of
Yeah,
doctors will not prescribe them, and then
yeah,
it's a mess to get insurance to deal with it, and they can get really pricey. And a
yeah,
lot of people will never in their lifetime hear of these things. They
yeah,
just won't, you know.
yeah,
I am blessed with the people I know that are either in
yeah.
the industry or doctors that I'm close with, you
Yeah,
know.
a lot of doctors just want to slap you on the easy one, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, statin, whatever. Uh,
Well, I have a fact for you here, and it's an unfortunate one, but it is a 1,000,000% fact. And some people will know this, but a lot of doctors are under severe pressure. And if they start writing those scripts, they could literally get dropped out of like networks. So people like places will drop them. And you imagine that will ruin their practice. And a lot of these guys are programmed in their classes and their teaching to put everybody on a statin and it's the greatest thing ever, or, whatever. I'm using statin as an example
yeah,
because but then antidepressants that they use and they like a Zoloft they prescribed all the time or whatever.
yeah,
They are just brainwashed into this and forced almost, That's why a lot of the really strong doctors, they break off and run their own clinics. They're
Yeah.
naturopathic doctors, and that's where I've learned so much of what I'm carrying with me right now is from a lot of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think, what in your opinion, are doctors and people in general getting wrong about hormones?
Oh
Um,
boy.
where where do you think some of the biggest issues are?
Well, one of the main problems, I think, first, let's just start from the beginning, is a lot of people will go to like their GP. And I want to understand when you go to a family doctor, it's a GP, it's a general practitioner. They
Yeah,
have very general information on things. They know things, they're doctors, so I'm not disrespecting them, but they're not specialists.
yeah,
Okay. So you go to one of these, a lot of them don't have a clue on what they're even doing when it comes to hormones or your testosterone levels. And just throwing somebody on TRT is absurd. Because so let's say Scott, you walk into me and your testosterone levels are like really low, you're having symptoms and everything. A lot of these doctors will not look at anything else other than a couple markers, and they'll go, okay, you need, testosterone cypionate 100 milligrams a week on your way. And it's like, no, no. First of all, you should be looking at free testosterone numbers before anything. And
yeah,
then you need to analyze other areas as to why these numbers are low and what could be causing it, because you may be able to fix it without putting someone on TRT first.
yeah, absolutely. Root cause.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love TRT. I stand by it 100%, but I don't believe in just throwing people on it for no reason.
yeah,
And I
right.
don't think a lot of people literally don't understand that once you start taking that, you're taking it forever. You're not
Yeah,
you're not going to take TRT for a year or two, come off of it, and then just be cool. It's not
yeah,
how it works.
yeah. A
You
lot of
know?
people still think you can.
Oh,
Crazy.
they just don't. Or a lot of people think you can take steroids and then not either go back onto TRT or run post cycle therapies, and they just
Yeah,
think, oh, and they don't even know. They have
yeah,
no clue.
yeah,
You don't just recover natural testosterone production. That's not how things work
yeah,
after you're taking exogenous testosterone. It doesn't work that way.
yeah. Uh, I was in the case where I did need TRT. I did. I mean, I took over a year to start it after they saw how low my testosterone levels were.
Mm.
I was about 150 nanograms per deciliter of
Oh
total
yeah.
testosterone. As like a 25-year-old healthy, lean male who exercised and like ate protein and stuff.
Mm.
Um, and I had extremely low bone mineral density for my
Hmm.
age. I had like below osteoporosis levels of bone mass, like three Z scores below the mean on a DEXA scan. And so that's why they went and checked my hormone levels. And then, spending over a year with doctors trying to figure out the why and how to improve it. Eventually, I was like, yes, I'm ready to do this. I think this is the best thing for my health. Like, it's not healthy to be walking around with like bones that are ready to dissolve. And yeah, it's been great for me. It's been life changing, but I think a lot of people see it as a cure all or see it as an easy fix, and uh, it's not. And there might be a different fix that is easy and doesn't require the lifetime commitment.
Yeah, and that's the key. So I my first recommendation is to get a professional endocrinologist that you're going to, or a very highly reputable clinic. That's why I'm in the process of getting one open where, we've got the credentials, and I'm going to have libraries of information and things you can actually trust. But you need to vet these people first before you just walk in and think that TRT is going to save your life, because you may not need it
Yeah.
you know, and there's all kinds of different factors and areas to look at before you just jump right onto it. Now, some people just have severely hypogonadal conditions, and but you need to figure out if that's the case first.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't
So,
agree more.
yeah, that's definitely problem number one, and then problem number two is coming up with a recommendation on, well, yes, it's low, but let's try to fix this another way first in terms of diet and working out, which could
Yeah.
be a cause. Now, if that's not the cause, then okay, but let's look and extensively ask about your diet and figure out, like, you could be eating foods that are causing you problems, or certain times of day. There's so many things, man.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Dylan, what are some things you're looking forward to in the next year? You mentioned trying to open new practices, some of the education you have going on. What are some of the top things you're looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Oh man, I got a lot of things going on this year. We're in the process of doing that. Like I said, with that clinic, I'm going to be at a lot of events this year. I've gotten some good partnerships. Like I have a good partnership with Timeline Nutrition, and that is like to me one of the biggest breakthrough supplements that I've ever seen. And I know a lot of people are down on supplement sales and things like that. I don't work with people anymore, and no matter how much they're going to pay me, unless I really, 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 really believe in it, and it's going to make my name look good. And so, like my studies, and because of them, I've really studied, cellular mitochondrial health and biology and things. So that enhancement of that knowledge, and then working with them as they formulate new things, and the partnerships that I've been able to make aside from that, like with Viva Rays, which is sunglasses, like blue light glasses during the day, but at
Yeah,
night, things like that. I have different things that I have in mind that I would like to accomplish this year with them. But beyond that, it's like my speaking now that I'm getting acknowledged more and getting at these events and speaking. I've been invited as VIP guest to things this year. Well, it's going to help to get me out there, but their speaking roles are already filled. But I want to speak more in front of people, deliver like my message of what I've gone through and how to overcome it, and then things that I've gathered along the way to help people live longer and healthier and happier. I mean,
yeah.
I finally figured out what the heck I was supposed to be doing with what I had, because I knew in my head it wasn't to make steroid videos every year, and I think the main thing for me this year that I'm looking forward to is doing like God's intended work for me, is really what it is, and finally putting that together and really making a difference.
That's awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you, Dylan. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure the audience will as well. And where can people find you and follow along?
Oh yeah. So my Instagram is my biggest following there. You can get me there. I post on TikTok, don't use it a lot, but you can get me also on Facebook, and then dylangemelli.com, and then Dylan Gemelli podcast on Apple, Spotify, everywhere, and Dylan Gemelli biohacking on YouTube.
Cool. I'll have links to all that. Thank you, Dylan.
Awesome. Thanks, man.